Hello and welcome once again to my channel where I try to provide Oracle education for your personal and professional development. And if you like what you see on this channel, please go ahead and subscribe. Do not forget to like the videos, enable notifications as well so that you stay informed when I release new content. In one of my previous videos, I think one of the more recent videos, I demonstrated how we could actively duplicate a database using RMAN. And it is important for us to kind of differentiate what we mean by duplication, which also means cloning, and refresh. Cloning is simply just creating an identical copy of an existing database. Usually, in the case, in our case, we are cloning a production database to create a test database, and typically that is done for the purposes of testing activities, maybe such as upgrades, patching, backup recovery strategies. Or if you are creating a test environment, it is usually also as a result of a request from the application teams so that they can have a lower environment where they could also perform testing and development. The difference between duplication and refresh, a refresh typically is when there is an existing environment and the data within that environment is considered stale, it's considered old. So there is the need for you as a DBA to kind of synchronize that data within that environment with a copy of data from production. And this is typically done by using backups. Now, if you have other advanced technologies like Oracle Golden Gate that will replicate in real time, then there is no need for a refresh. But traditionally, when we talk about refresh, we're talking about either refreshing a lower environment, a test, UAT, SIT database with a copy from production, or in the event that you are refreshing only particular schemas, then you could also use Oracle's data pump utility to export from production and then import into the test environment. Now, if we have enough time in this demo, we would be able to perform both of them. Now, in my scenario here, if you watched my last video, you probably are familiar with this diagram where I created a duplicate of our primdb from our prod server, a primary server, to a test server and called it primtst. So what I'm trying to do today is that exercise was done about 2 weeks ago or more. And so information on primtest is stale because I think I've added a few schemas to the primdb, and I would like those to replicate over those changes. Of course, I want to copy down those changes to primtest. So let's go ahead and get started with this demo. My primserve server, I'm going to create a connection here. Let me make this a little bit bigger here for us to see. And I would also create another connection to my test server. On my prim server, I would look at the contents of my ORATAP file. I have 3 databases, but what interests me in here is my primdb. So I would set my ORA env to my primdb, and let's go in there and see what the status of that select instance name status from the $instance. All right, so it's in an open state. Let's do the same for our test server. So let's cut the contents of our Etsy or a tab, and we have our primtest. So primtst equals so select instance name status from the $instance. All right, primtest is also open. So what I intend to do in this scenario would be, first of all, because we are trying to refresh from backups, let's first of all try to see what changes we are trying to account for. So, and for that, I would go over to SQL Developer, which is a much more user-friendly tool. In one of my other videos, of course, I demonstrated how to create a basic connection to the database using SQL Developer. So I would add the link to that as a related video for this one, if you want to learn how to do that. All right, so let's go ahead and look at database users. So for our primdb, and just to make sure that we are sitting on the right database, I will run this same command on this interface just to make sure that we are sitting on the right database. So let's run that, and fair enough, it's primdb, and let's try to see for our test db, primtst. So this is primtst. So fair enough, we're sitting on the right instance. Let's take a look at the number of DBA users. Currently, I have 39 here, and for our primtst, I have 36. So, and the reason, like I mentioned earlier, was because I created 3 users. I love looking at sports. I like sports, all kinds of sports. And I created 3 users: NBA analyst, NFL analyst, MLB analyst. And for those 3 users, I created some tables, just some summary tables with general information, you know, about NBA teams, NFL teams, and MLB teams. Now, each of those tables, for the NBA teams, we have 30. For the NFL teams, we have 32. And for the MLB teams, we have 30. Now, we don't have those users on this side. So if I do an Oracle maintain equals no, we don't have any of those on this side. So, so at the end of our refresh, what I seek to achieve would be that these users would now be present in the test environment, where we can kind of start playing around, doing all kinds of analysis on those tables. All right, so let's get started here. So again, like I mentioned, we would need backups, right? And we do need backups of a production environment. So we'll go ahead and take backups of our production environment, and we would copy those backups to the test server. So let's go ahead, exit out of SQL Plus and log into RMAN, connecting to target on the primary database. And we are connected to target. So first of all, let's see, let's list what backups we have here. List backup summary. Let's see what backups we have here. So, okay, so we don't have any recent backups in there, which is okay. So we'll take backups. We'll take a backup. Now, I don't want to point the backup to the normal flash recovery area, because if you take a look at the flash recovery area, let's go in here, and then I do show parameter recovery. My flash recovery area is this location, home Oracle backup. So if I exit out of this and I go to home Oracle backup and ls-l, I do have my primdb folder here. So I'm going to cd into that. And what I usually see here is that the backups are segmented into archive log backups, auto backups, and these are for control file auto backups, and then the backup sets. I don't want them to be in this format because it's going to be a little bit difficult for me to move them over. So I would run an RMAN and point them to a location that I have created, or let me see if I have created those already. So I usually have a stage location, U01 stage, and I don't have anything in this stage location. So in my RMAN command, I am pointing these databases to U01 stage primdb. I would create a folder in here called primdb. So let's go ahead, I'll copy this one here. And let's make sure that I would make dir -p primdb. So I now have a primdb there. So let's cd into primdb. Of course, there's going to be no backups in there. And I would want to use that same location, that same directory structure when I get into the test database. So I would make that directory as well. Make dir -p u 01 stage primdb. So let's cd into that. Of course, there's not going to be anything there since we just created it. So, all right. So now we have our locations created. And then, of course, I would go into RMAN target. And I would copy this backup command. So I'm backing up the database. I'm backing up archive logs. I'm backing up the current control file. And I'm backing up the SP files. All right, I'm going to copy all. And let's go ahead and back up. It shouldn't take too long. It is a smaller database. It shouldn't take too long. All right, so RMAN is complete. Let me list backup summary. And here we go. Let's see. I'm just going to do a list backup. So if I can see a little bit more details. So yes, U01 stage primdb, a database backup contains our data files, and we have 4 of them. And we can also double check that as well. So if I go here and I select, this is my primdb. If I run a select name from $data file, I should have an identical amount of files. So I have 4 files, which are all the same, that are within my database backup. And this is the archive logs. Let's look at the sequence. We have up to 33. And I can also take a look here. I have a command here already. Let's run the sequence number from the $archive logs. And let's take a look at that. And if I double click here, just to sort it, I have archive logs up to this point. All right, so let me go ahead then and exit out of RMAN. And where am I? U01 stage primdb ls-l, just to double check if actually those backups are in this location. So all the backups happen to be in this location, which is a really, really good thing. All right. So I'm going to copy this into the test server. I'm just going to use an scp command. Since I'm currently in that location, I'm just going to use a star, which copies everything within this location. And I'm connecting to Oracle at test serve. And I'm going to put that in the U01 stage primdb as well. So let's do that. It's the first time it's connecting. I say yes. So I would go ahead and do that. So if you look on this side, on the test server side, we can start seeing those files coming. So we have 3 of them already. I think the database backup is typically what takes a little bit more time. So, all right. So let's do an ls-l here. Actually, let's do an ls-lh. Let's do an ls. I didn't do that right. ls-lh, just to make sure that we are looking at the file sizes and double checking that they are the same size that came from here. So database backup is 1.4 gig, 1.4 gig. SP file is 112K, 112K. So control file 11 and archive logs 24. So 11 and 24. So we're just checking the integrity of the files that came over. So that being said, we have taken our backups, we've moved them over to the test server. Now, most of the work we are going to be doing would be at the level of the test server. So let's go ahead and do that. If we want to take a look at our primdb. So our current primdb, let's go ahead and cd into, because we have an environmental variable set already, we can just use the dollar Oracle. Let me move this here so we can see. Home DBS folder, ls-l. So we have an SP file, we have an init parameter file that we had created that has only the database name. So we are going to need this file. If you don't have this file, then you have to create one. The init, the initialization, the text version of the initialization parameter file is init, the Oracle SID, in our case is init primtst.aura. Okay, so let's go into our database, and we would shut it down because I need to nuke this database. I would drop this database. That's what I mean. So it doesn't matter if I shut it down abort or immediate, as long as the database goes down. I would start it in the mount exclusive restrict mode and drop it. All right, it's shutting down. Let's see. All right, our database instance is down. All right, so let's exit. Let's start up mount exclusive restrict, because if we don't start it in exclusive restrict, we're not going to be able to drop that database. All right, so it's mounted. So all I need to do is issue a drop database. You have to be, be careful each time you issue a drop database. You want to make sure really that's what you want to do. It goes a lot faster than trying to drop it using GBCA. So let's exit out of this. I would look at my parameter files out here, and you realize that that SP file is gone. So all that is left for you is the initialization parameter file. So again, we view the contents. All we need in that initialization parameter file is a DB name. We are going to be able to start a new database in a no mount state. So let's, assuming that you are within an environment where you don't have the environmental variable set, let's go ahead and do that. So let's take a look here and see. All right, so cat etc Aura tab. And if you don't have the Aura tab, that's fine. I mean, I'm sure as DBAs, you know what your Oracle home is. So let's export Oracle home equals this. Export Oracle SID equals primtst. Export or export path equals a dollar Oracle home, bin location, and then to that we append to the path variable. All right, that way we can SQL plus as sysdba. We are connected to an idle instance, and we want to start up. So before we do that, let me exit out of this and show you guys where I am. So pwd ls-l. So I am in the Oracle Home DBS folder, and within the Oracle Home DBS folder, we have our initialization parameter files. So I would SQL plus as sysdba, and I would start up no mount. Now, if I do a startup no mount, this is the only initialization parameter file I have. It will start. But just as good practice, I would point it to that P file. P file init primtst. So I'm going to point it to use that P file init primtst to start up in no mount. Okay, now that we have a running instance, let's double check that. Select instance name status from v$instance. So we have a primtst instance that is started. So let's exit out of this. Remember, the TNS names I mentioned earlier needed to have entries to both databases. So I would run a TNS ping to primtst just to make sure I'm able to resolve that connection. It resolves it in 0 milliseconds. I want a TNS ping as well to primdb. I did the first one on primtst, primdb, if I'm able to resolve that as well. So this is important because RMAN we are connecting to primdb and primtst. So RMAN, let's connect target sys password Oracle at primdb. So that would be our target database. And to that, we are going to add an auxiliary sys password Oracle at primtst. Okay, good. So far, everything is looking good. From the query we ran to see archive logs, we have archive logs back up to about 1823, which is 623. So I can restore or refresh this database up to any point before that. But just to be, to be on the safe side, why don't I go with, 1800 or 1810 or 1815? Usually when you're getting the request to refresh a database, the application folks are going to tell you, to what point they want that to happen. So there is an RMAN run block. I'm duplicating that database, and I'm using a parameter value convert. If you watched the video I did on active database duplication, I explained a little bit more. And for the refresh, of course, we need to specify, because we're using backups, we are duplicating using backups, we need to specify where those backups are. So I would set an until time depending on what I find here. Again, like I said, I could set it to 6, I could set it to 6:15, I could set it to 6:20, anytime before the last of the archives. So, all right, let's go. Let's go 6:15. So let's do 18, maybe 15. Let's do 18:15. So it's kind of like a point in time recovery that we are trying to do. So let's go ahead and run this. And if everything goes well, our database refresh should be on the way. Everything hopefully, because this usually is a tricky part. We're making good progress here. Right, I think we're about to open our database and reset logs. We should be at the end of our RMAN, so voila. So it looks like everything did go well. Let's take a look at our database here to see. So let's exit out of RMAN. And ls-l, there would have been a new SP file that was created, SP file. Let's go back into our database, primtst, select instance name status from the $instance. All right, so there you have it. We have a prim test. Select name from the $instance. No, select name from the database. Select name from the data file. And so we have our primtst data files. Now, let's go to our validation, right? Remember I said before the beginning of refresh, our objective was to make sure that we had these users, the NBA guys, over on this side. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. And we want to select the counts from the teams just to make sure, from the tables just to make sure, okay? First of all, we're going to select Oracle maintained, and if everything looks good, we should see 3. Yay, so we see 3. So MLB, and on this is primtst, just to make sure we are on the right instance of primtst. And if we look at the count of our NBA teams, we have 30. And we look at the count of our NFL teams, we have 32. And we look at the count of our MLB analysts at the MLB teams, we have 30. All right, so this is the first part. So this is a quick way. Now, depending, again, like I said, different environments have automated refreshes in so many different ways. Depending on what it is in your environment, it could be maybe as straightforward as a method like this, or it could be heavily scripted. And there are different tools and utilities you can use for refreshes. So the joy about it is there are multiple ways for you to be able to do that. Now, this is the first part of the video. Now, the second part of the video, let's try a few things and then just make sure that I show you also what we want to do when it comes to maybe schema refreshes. So from our primary database, our primdb, we're going to make some changes to these different, tables, because those are some of the schemas. So this is what we are transitioning into what we call a schema-based refresh. All right, so let's take a look here. I might have, I'm going to create a new table. I'm going to create a new table, and so this is our exit. No, let's not exit, because we're going to exit out of the terminal. So let's go into our SQL plus assist-dba. Let's connect the NFL analyst. I cannot type. The password is Oracle. And let's select table name from user underscore tables. Let's see. So we have only one table here. I don't want to mess around with this table, so I would create another table. And again, just to make it a little fun and interesting, let's see what's in. Let's not select count star here. Let's just select star, right? Let me copy this. Let's not select count star. Let's actually select star. from that table. So we see what we have there. So basically, this is just kind of a listing of all the 32 football teams. Each one of them has an ID, 1 to 32, the abbreviation, the conference in which they play, and the division in which they play. So the Cardinals, of course, are Arizona. They are part of the NFC conference, and they are in the West Division. So I just want to make just a little change. So let's talk Super Bowl for a little bit. And again, we don't have the time to go into update this table with when each of these teams won their most recent Super Bowl. And I live in Minnesota, I'm a Minnesota Viking, and it hurts when I talk about Super Bowl victories. But hey, this is a learning, this is a learning video. So let's go ahead and have fun. All right. I'm going to create a table called Super Bowl from a table called Super Bowl from our NFL teams. So let's do that. I'm going to create a table called Super Bowl from our NFL teams. Let's go back in here. Because I own this table, and if I show you here, well, not I own this table. So if I say show user, the NFL analyst is the one that owns that table. So if I create a new table Super Bowl as select star from NFL teams, I'm basically just recreating that NFL teams table and giving it a different name. And I would want to mess, a few things around in that table. So so if I select, before I select, let's set pages to 100, and then select star from Super Bowl. All right, so this is how my table looks like right now. I want to add a column to this table where I can maybe, put at least for the last 5 years, just as a demo, to put who the winners were for the last 5 years, even though New England has won twice. So I'm going to skip that one so that it doesn't mess up our what we're doing here. So alter table Super Bowl, I'm going to add a column called Super Bowl champs. And so if I describe Super Bowl, what I have now is I have an additional table, which is different from, of course, the table that we created from. So if I describe NFL teams, I should have one column less. So I added Super Bowl champs. Now, the reason I added this was because I wanted to run just a few queries and update, and add some entries to the new row, to the new column I created. So I'm going to run some updates where 2022, the most recent is the Rams. Last year was Tampa Bay Bucks. 2020 Kansas City. Of course, 2019 New England. 18 was Philadelphia. 17 actually was New England, I think, if I'm not wrong. That's why I had to skip it and go to the Denver Broncos, who won in 2016. So let's see how this works. Let's update those. Okay, so let's select star from Super Bowl. I added Super Bowl champs, but it doesn't look like that worked. So let's go ahead and do that. One row updated. Okay, it's going to need me to do this, probably because I added the comments at the end. Now I'm going to do that. Sorry, this is a little painful, but okay. And then one last one. This shouldn't take too long. Okay, good. So if we run a select star from Super Bowl. All right, so at least we have entries in our, SB Championship, Super Bowl champs, right? Okay, so assuming that we've made these changes in prod, and hey, the dev guy says, hey, listen, our data is still, could you refresh just, a few schemas, and maybe they requested particularly for us to refresh this, NFL schema. We could also make some changes to, the other, users as well. So let's exit. Let's go SQL plus NBA teams. No, NBA analyst. Oracle. Okay, good. Show user, NBA analyst, select user table name from user underscore tables. Let's just do it. Let's just do something. So let's select, let's create a new table. Create table NBA champs from select select star from NBA teams. All right, so let's select then the NBA champs. Select star, sorry, I'm trying to rush it, and from NBA champs. Okay, so what we can do here is let's just run a truncate. Let's truncate NBA champs. Truncate table NBA champs. Truncate table NBA champs. Okay, good. So if we run a select star from NBA champs, we should not see anything in there. All right, good. So, and of course, if we select a table name from user underscore tables, we should see two tables belonging to NBA analysts. So NBA champs and NBA teams. So this, as minute as these changes might be, let's see how we can do a schema refresh. Okay. When you're performing a data pump, there are a few things that you need to know. Oracle creates a dump file while exporting, and the location to which that dump file is placed depends on what we call an Oracle directory, right? A directory object. So, and we can see what the existing directory objects are if we run a select star from DBA directories. In one of my videos, the one I did on an upgrade from 11G to 19 using data pump, if you go back to my videos, you would see explicitly how we go into detail about creating DBA, creating an Oracle directory and things like that. For this exercise, we're just going to use an existing directory, and there is a default, the data pump dir. So what we are going to do, the location of the data pump dir, we are going to go to this location. I'll copy that location. So I would cd into that location. U01 app admin primdb dp dump, and I don't think there is, okay, there's a dp.log in there, but I would create what we call a par file. A par file just simply, or maybe I'll just keep it simple, right? Let's run an export. expdp, I will run the export as system, and for my directory, I would give that directory object that default name. So the dp pump, data pump dir, I would give it that data pump dir. And I want to move schemas, the following schemas. I just want to get the name here. So NFL, let's start with NBA analyst. Hopefully I am spelling them right. And I would hate to not spell them right. NBA analyst. Exactly, I was spelling them right. So I was doing MBA rather than NBA. Okay, let's do this. Let's make it a little bit quicker for me. Oracle maintained here. I should get those names here. I would copy them. I would bring them over here. I would open up a new notepad, paste them in here, and then I go to the end. I bring that in. So that way I know I am not messing any names up. Because all it takes is a mistake and you are not going to be very happy. Dump file equals, let's do schemas. Let's do primdb schemas.dmp. And for the log file, let's do primdb schemas.log. And if everything looks good, so we have a directory object, we have a directory deep data pump there. We have a schemas, we have a dump file, and we have a log file. And then Oracle would be the password for system. And if all goes well, again, these are small schemas, it shouldn't take time. Once this is done, and then I would do the same and perform an import on the other side. All right, absolutely fantastic. Now let's take a look at this. So it copied 32 rows, 0 rows, of course, 30 rows, 30 rows, 32 rows, okay? And let's ls minus l right here, and then we have this. So again, in a similar way, I would go over to the primtst database, and I would select star from GBA directories. Let's do that. Let's select star from GBA directories here. And GBA directories, and then I also do have data pump there in the same location. That's interesting. So let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at that location here and see on our test server. Let's exit out of this. CD that. Let's do CD into that. I was kind of surprised I saw GP, the prim, it has to be primtst, not primdb. So let's do that. And then I would create that folder in here. So make dir dp dump. Okay, so cd dp dump ll. So pwd, I will have to recreate this over here. So let's go back on this side, and I will just kind of fix this. So create or replace directory as directory deep data pump there as, and then I pointed to that new location. So let's do that. So create or replace directory data pump there. And then let's create and replace that. So, okay, good. So data pump there directory created. Let's take a look at that. Now we have it. Now we have it in a good place. That's good. So I prefer that. So let's move again using our SCP commands. Let's move this file over. ls minus l. Let's move the dump file over. So scp primdb.dump. Let's move that dump file over. Oracle at test serve to that location. And quick, it's gone. So on our test server, ls minus l. Yay, so that's good. All right, so since we have it in there, let's use an IMPDP, same thing, system directory. I can just copy some of this here, since most of it is going to be the same. Schemas, dump file that. So up to this point is going to be the same. Up to this point is going to be the same. Log file equals, and I could do .log. I can just add imp just to make it a little different. .log, and then I want to add a table exists action. So when I add a table exists action, it simply just instructs the import that if there is a table that is existing within the schemas, what should I do? And it can take one of 4 different variables, right? It can actually skip. And if we use skip, of course, then we are defining the purpose while we are performing a schema refresh. What we want in the schema refresh is to actually replace the data, to replace the table. Now, in certain situations, you might be wanting to add data to the table. So you would append, or in certain cases, you would truncate. But in our case, we want to replace. So if that table is existing, please replace. So let's go ahead and do that. Oracle, and then let's see what happens to our import. So, of course, objects are already existing and we instructed it to replace. Remember that in a test database, we didn't have the new table, NBA champs. We didn't have the new table, the Super Bowl. We didn't have these 2 tables. So, and of course, there are 3 errors, and we know why, because we saw the errors up here. Now, you have to be familiar with data pump and errors. Data pump is not short of errors. But more often than not, you would get errors with your data pump import. And the key is to understand which errors to take seriously and which errors to ignore. All right. So now in this case, let's go ahead and take a look at what we need to take a look at here. So if we go into our database and then we connect as the NFL analyst, Oracle, show user, and then we select user table name from user underscore tables. We now see that rather than one table that it had, it now has the NFL teams and the Super Bowl teams. And we can also connect the NBA user, analyst user, and run the same command to see if that effectively has also added the NBA champs table. And as the NFL user, let's just double check to see our NFL analyst. Let's just connect again and see if running a select, let's of course set pages 100, and then select star from Super Bowl. And then let's make sure that, hey, we have the data that we made some changes in our primdb that are now reflecting in our test database. So this is an example of a schema refresh. So just to summarize, in the video, we planned on doing 2 things: refreshing the database using RMAN, using backups from production or our primary database. And we also planned on demonstrating how we could use data pump to perform schema refreshes. I hope this content has been informative for you. And if you do like the videos, please go ahead, subscribe to our channel, like our videos, and enable notifications so that as we release new content, you stay informed. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.